You know how it is? Sometimes it feels like our emotions just grab the steering wheel of our lives, right?
Oh,
That
absolutely.
sudden anger flare-up or that wave of anxiety that just swamps everything. We've all been there.
Yeah, definitely. Emotions are incredibly powerful, and it can feel like we're just, reacting to them rather than being in control.
Well, that feeling, that being at the mercy of our emotions, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Hmm.
You, our listener, pointed us towards some really insightful material, specifically Hibo Merides' book, Master Your Emotions.
Great recommendation.
Think of this as your fast track, sort of to understanding the inner workings of your feelings and, maybe more importantly, how you can navigate them with greater confidence and maybe less overwhelm.
Less overwhelm is always good.
Our mission today is pretty clear. Explore what emotions truly are, what influences them, sometimes hidden stuff, and some really down-to-earth strategies you can actually use for positive change.
Practical stuff.
Exactly. By the end of this, we're aiming for you to feel significantly more in charge.
Hmm.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. So the book starts off looking at the fundamental nature of emotions.
Okay.
It points out that a lot of our emotional responses are really deeply connected to basic survival instincts.
Makes sense.
Think about dopamine, for instance.
Dopamine, yeah, the brain's way of saying, hey, good job keeping yourself alive, sort of thing.
Exactly. The book talks about how it drives us to seek out essentials like food and, well, partners.
It's that neurological pat on the back for things that, historically anyway, ensured our survival
Yeah.
and, passing on our genes.
Precisely. But here's where it gets interesting. How this ancient system can get a little out of sync with our modern world.
How so?
Well, we're not just focused on finding the next meal anymore, are we?
Right.
So now dopamine can get triggered by things that don't really help our long-term well-being. Things like social media pings,
Oh, yeah.
pornography, gambling even. They can all lead to these artificial dopamine surges.
Right. It's like our brains are getting these little hits of pleasure, and we can get caught in a loop,
Hmm.
even if it's not really benefiting us in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But the book makes a really clear point here.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we get that dopamine rush doesn't mean we have to act on it.
That's crucial. We still have agency.
Yeah, we aren't just puppets of our brain chemistry.
Which leads into another really fascinating idea. The book explores the one day I will myth.
I think I know this one.
It's that belief that happiness is, somewhere in the future. Once we hit a certain goal or get a specific thing.
The classic, once I get that promotion or once I buy that perfect house, then I'll finally be happy mindset.
Yeah, and what's really key here is this concept called hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation. Okay.
It's basically our tendency for happiness to return to a kind of baseline level, even after big positive events or negative ones too.
So we just get used to things.
Pretty much. Our minds are amazing at adapting. That initial buzz, that excitement, it tends to fade,
Mhm.
and we drift back to our usual level of contentment.
Huh.
So the insight is chasing external happiness. It's often a treadmill.
Right.
Real fulfillment, the book argues, comes more from our internal state, what's going on inside.
That's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? The book mentions that famous 1978 study,
Oh yeah, the lottery winners?
lottery winners and people who became paraplegic. And surprisingly, like a year later,
Their happiness levels were pretty similar to before the big event.
wild. Dan Gilbert talks about this too in his TED Talk, doesn't he? The psychological immune system helping us adapt.
Precisely. And then there's Sanjay Labramirski's research, which adds another layer.
Okay, what did she find?
She suggests about 50% of our happiness is down to genetics.
50%. Wow.
Yeah. And only about 10% is external circumstances. Your job, your house, your money.
Only 10.
Only 10. Which leaves a huge chunk, 40%, determined by internal factors.
Waiting.
Our thoughts, our attitudes, our actions, what we actually do.
So that puts the focus squarely on what's happening inside us.
It absolutely does. Now, the book also brings in the ego as a major player in our emotional lives.
Right, ego. And for a lot of people, that just means being like arrogant or full of yourself.
Yeah, but the book uses it in a broader sense.
How so?
It defines the ego as the self-identity we construct, our sense of me.
Okay.
It's not just pride, it's this whole identity built from our thoughts, our interpretations of things.
And the key takeaway is
That a lot of what we think of as us is actually a mental construct. And knowing that gives us some power over our emotional reactions.
Because
Because this ego, this self-identity, doesn't really have a concrete, independent existence. It's built.
it's like the story we tell ourselves about who we are, and the book gives examples of how we build it.
Yeah, loads. Identifying with our name, our age, religion, political views, our job.
These become like anchors for our sense of self.
Exactly. And the ego needs this identity to feel real. It's constantly looking for things to attach itself to reinforce that feeling of me.
Okay, so what kind of things does it latch onto?
Well, the book breaks down a few. One is physical items are stuff, possessions.
Oh, yeah, that whole having equals being thing the book mentions.
Yeah,
It's so deep in consumer culture, isn't it?
totally. We buy things not just for function, but for the image, the status, the personality they project.
Right.
Owning stuff isn't bad in itself, obviously. But the problem comes when we get too attached, when we think these things define us or will fulfill us.
Makes sense. What else?
Our physical bodies, huge one. So many people tie their self-worth directly to how they look.
Yeah, I can see that.
The ego loves it because it's visible, measurable. But the book points out we can observe our bodies without completely being our bodies.
Interesting distinction. What about relationships?
Friends, acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
The ego often looks at what it can gain from these connections, how they can boost its identity, seeking approval, validation.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets into specific dynamics too, like parent-child relationships, where a parent's ego might get overly identified with their kids, seeing them as extensions, trying to live through them,
Mm-hmm.
the intense sideline parents at games.
Yeah, that paints a picture. And what about couples?
That section references Anthony DeMello, his idea that loneliness isn't cured just by having people around,
Okay.
but by realizing we don't fundamentally need someone else to complete us.
Ah,
When that neediness drops away, you can actually enjoy people more for who they are.
that's quite profound. Beliefs too, right? The ego loves beliefs.
Oh, massively. The book points out how fiercely people defend their beliefs, religious, political, whatever, sometimes leading to major conflict.
Why?
The ego uses them to solidify itself, create a sense of I am right and belonging.
Wow. The book lists a bunch of other things too, doesn't it? Nationality, culture, family history.
Our personal story, even our problems, our age, job, social status, roles, desires. It's a long list.
Yeah. And it boils down the ego's main characteristics,
Yeah.
like equating having with being,
Living through comparison.
never being satisfied.
Depending on others' approval.
It sounds exhausting.
It kind of is, and that constant need to feel superior is a big part of it.
How does it do that?
The book lists strategies, like casually name-dropping important people,
Uh-huh.
gossiping to make yourself look better,
Classic.
manifesting inferiority or superiority complexes,
Hmm.
seeking fame, always needing to be right.
Complaining.
Yep. Complaining positions you as the victim or the one who knows better, and just generally seeking attention.
It's like this little engine inside constantly trying to puff itself up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But then the book shifts focus, which is important, to the nature of emotions themselves,
Okay.
emphasizing their temporary quality. This is so key. Emotions come and go. We don't have to get so tangled up in them.
So learning to let them flow through us without adding commentary.
Exactly. No, I shouldn't feel this, or this will last forever. The book acknowledges we will still feel sad, disappointed, insecure.
Of course.
But the key is remembering they're just visitors. They're transient.
And this is so important. The book says negative emotions aren't inherently bad or useless.
Right. It's easy to beat ourselves up for feeling bad.
Totally.
But the book reframes them. They can be wake-up calls, signals that something needs attention, or help us learn something important about ourselves.
It mentions people like Elon Musk and Abraham Lincoln, right?
Mm.
Who struggled but achieved amazing things.
Yeah, exactly. It makes a great comparison to physical pain.
How so?
Pain isn't fun, but it's a vital signal.
Right.
Something's wrong. Negative emotions can be like that for our inner world, pointing to a distorted interpretation maybe, or an unmet need.
So the goal isn't to eliminate negative feelings. Probably impossible anyway.
Right. It's to understand their messages and get better at navigating them when they show up.
Got it. The book also talks about the filtering effect of emotions, how our mood colors everything.
This is really interesting. When we're in a positive state, happy, excited, whatever, we tend to have more energy, more confidence. We're more open, more resilient, more creative.
It's easier to access other positive feelings too, right?
Exactly. The book uses the example of being excited about starting an online business. That excitement fuels positive actions, problem solving, persistence. It's a cycle.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
But the flip side is true too. A negative state limits us.
It can, yeah. It limits the range of emotions we can easily access. The book references the Hicks's emotional ladder.
Oh, what? No.
Emotional ladder. It shows how sometimes you might need to move through an emotion like anger or frustration.
Which we usually see as negative.
Right. But it can be a stepping stone to climb out of deeper, more disempowering feelings like hopelessness or depression.
So anger can actually provide energy.
Sometimes, yeah. That burst of energy from anger can be the catalyst needed to shift things upwards. It provides momentum.
Interesting perspective. Okay, so if that's the nature of emotions, what actually impacts them? The book goes into that next.
It does, and the first thing it highlights is something huge, but we often underestimate it: sleep.
Oh, sleep, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely fundamental.
The book really hammers home how crucial it is for mood, memory, decision-making, even long-term health. It mentions a Rand Europe study linking poor sleep to higher mortality risk.
Wow. And the cost to the economy just from sleep deprivation is massive too.
It is. And here's something else. Being sleep deprived actually makes it harder to enjoy positive experiences.
Really?
It's like our brains are just less receptive to joy and pleasure when we're exhausted.
Huh. Okay, so we need better sleep. What does the book suggest?
Really practical stuff.
Yeah.
Establishing routines morning and evening, consistent bedtimes and wake-up times,
Okay.
avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed, limiting screens, maybe reading a real book, watching water intake before bed, even strategic naps on weekends if you had a late night. It really says experiment, find what works for you.
Good advice. What's next after sleep?
The body, the physical body and its connection to emotions.
Ah, posture and body language.
Exactly. How we hold ourselves can actually influence how we feel. Think about standing tall when you feel confident.
Yeah, the power pose idea.
Right. And the book shares a really striking experiment by David K. Reynolds.
From constructive living, yeah.
That's the one. He deliberately induced depression in himself just by slumping his posture and using negative self-talk.
And it worked. Like clinically.
Psychological tests confirmed it. He wasn't just acting. It shows how deep that mind-body link goes.
Wow. And how did he get out of it?
By consciously changing his posture and forcing himself to be physically active, deliberate effort, and his mood lifted.
Which leads nicely into exercise.
Exactly. The huge benefits of exercise for emotional well-being. Michael Otto's analogy is, great exercise is like taking aspirin for a headache when you're feeling low.
I like that. David Kent's story, too, overcoming depression with activity. The research backs this up strongly, right?
Oh, yeah. James Blumenthal's Duke study showed exercise can be as effective as antidepressants for mild to moderate depression.
And better long-term for preventing relapse, I think.
That's right. And the good news is, you don't need to run marathons. Even moderate exercise, like 30 minutes 5 days a week, makes a big difference. Improves mood, helps you live longer. Studies confirm it.
So immediate mood boost and long-term benefits.
Double win.
Okay, so sleep, body, exercise. What else influences our emotions? Thoughts, I assume.
Absolutely. Thoughts are central. The book talks about visualization first.
How does that work?
Our subconscious mind apparently isn't great at telling the difference between vivid imagination and reality.
Yeah.
So by regularly visualizing positive feelings, gratitude, excitement, whatever, you can actually condition your mind to feel them more easily.
Like mentally rehearsing positive states. Cool. What about the words we use?
Huge impact. Language shapes thoughts, which shape emotions and behaviors. It's all connected.
Examples.
The book points out words that undermine confidence, like try, hope, wish.
Yeah, they sound a bit weak.
Right. And suggests replacing them with stronger words like will, absolutely, certainly, consciously choosing empowering language.
Makes sense. And that connects to affirmations, right?
Exactly. Positive affirmations, those sentences you repeat to condition your subconscious.
How do you do them effectively?
Present tense. Avoid negatives. Say what you want, not what you don't want. Repeat them. Visualize. And really feel the emotion.
Feeling it is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins calls them incantations and adds body movement to make them even more powerful. Really embody the statement.
Okay. Next step, breathing.
Yes, the breath. We know breathing exercises are big now for stress management.
Definitely.
The book highlights how different breathing patterns affect us. Some relieve stress, some increase awareness, some calm anxiety. It even mentions breath of fire for energy and tension release.
Shows that direct link between breath and emotional state. What about our surroundings?
Environment matters too. Clutter, noise, aesthetics, they all impact how we feel. The book encourages creating a supportive space.
Good point. And finally,
Mm.
music.
Music. Such a powerful emotional tool. Studies show positive music boosts mood, reduces negativity, even raises
I
self-esteem.
definitely use music for that.
Valerie Stratton's research found music tends to intensify positive feelings, whatever the genre or situation.
So we can consciously use it.
Absolutely. Create playlists for specific moods you want. Christopher Berglund used it for peak athletic performance, motivation, even calming nerves before public speaking.
So the encouragement is for you, the listener, to think about how music could help your mood. And it's personal, right? Whatever works for you.
Totally individual.
Okay, that's a lot of influencing factors. Now, the big question, how do we actually change our emotions when we need to?
Right, the how-to. The book gives a formula, basically, for how strong emotions often form.
A formula.
Interpretation plus identification plus repetition, strong emotion.
Okay, break that down. Interpretation.
That's how we personally make sense of an event or thought based on our own story, our past experiences, our beliefs.
So different people can interpret the same event very differently.
Exactly. Then identification. That's how much we latch onto the thought or feeling. How much we believe this is me.
Believing the thought. Got it. And repetition.
Simply how often we replay that thought or scenario in our minds, dwelling on it.
Like stewing over something that made you angry versus getting absorbed in something else.
Precisely. So the path to changing emotions often starts with changing the interpretation.
How do we do that?
By challenging our assumptions. Questioning those rigid shoulds we have.
Examples of shoulds.
I should always be healthy. I should be married by 30. People shouldn't complain so much. The book suggests questioning if these are really true or helpful. Can we find alternative ways to see things?
Recognizing they're just interpretations, not facts.
Yeah,
And changing them changes the feeling.
often yes. This leads into positive thinking again. Conditioning the mind. The book has great quotes here. Buddha, Emerson, Gandhi on the power of thought.
Right. Thoughts create emotions. Emotions drive actions. Actions shape reality. That's the flow.
Yeah. And imagination is powerful, but the book stresses it needs emotion behind it. Enthusiasm, excitement, passion to really create change.
So just thinking isn't enough. You need the feeling too.
Exactly. It contrasts confident people who deposit positive thoughts with those maybe lower in self-esteem who constantly bombard themselves with negativity.
It's about consciously cultivating the positive. What are some practical exercises the book suggests for this?
Several good ones. Gratitude is big.
How?
Writing down things you're grateful for, mentally thanking people during the day, really focusing on and appreciating a simple object, listening to gratitude meditations or songs.
Okay, gratitude. What else?
Cultivating excitement, visualizing things you desire each morning, really feeling the excitement,
Joy and happiness.
actively doing things that bring you joy, spending time with loved ones, hobbies, making time for fun.
Sounds simple, but important. And self-esteem.
Track your daily accomplishments in a notebook. Even small wins count. It shifts your focus.
I like that. Acknowledging progress.
Yeah.
And decisiveness.
Mel Robbins' 5-second rule comes up again. Act on an idea within 5 seconds before your brain talks you out of it.
Practice on small things first.
Yeah, build the muscle.
Okay, but what if positive thinking just isn't cutting it? When negative feelings are really strong?
Good question. The book acknowledges that. That's where letting go comes in.
Letting go.
First step,
Hmm.
awareness. Connect with the feeling in your body. Where is it? What does it feel like?
Okay, body awareness.
Second, observe with detachment. Don't get lost in the story your mind tells about the feeling. Don't believe every thought that pops up.
Just watch it.
Yeah. And third, label it. This is sadness, or, okay, anger is here. This creates separation, reminds you you are not the emotion.
Creating space. Witnessing, not being consumed.
Exactly. The book then introduces the Sedona Method's release technique.
With
Asking yourself 3 questions about the feeling. Could I let this feeling go? Would I? Meaning, am I willing to? And when? Often the answer to when is now.
Simple but sounds powerful. What about changing behavior?
Another key strategy. If you're worried about a presentation, rehearse more. Resenting a friend, have an honest talk. Feeling unmotivated, just start one tiny part of the task.
Action changes the feeling.
Small behavioral shifts can make a big difference. Identify things you do that undermine your happiness and try changing them.
Like acting as if you feel better can actually make you feel better.
Sometimes, yes. And changing your environment comes up again, too.
How?
Actively remove negative triggers. Declutter. Reduce exposure to toxic people or negative news. Make your space feel good.
Okay, so the book offers short-term fixes too, right? For when you're in a negative state.
Yeah. Short term, accept the feeling, don't fight it, take action anyway if needed, become aware, maybe write about it, talk about it, recall positive memories, let go using those questions, or just allow the emotion to be there. Get curious about it.
And long-term solutions.
Identify your triggers, challenge negative thought patterns consistently, develop healthy coping mechanisms, prioritize self-care, sleep, nutrition, exercise, cultivate positive relationships, do meaningful things, and, importantly, seek professional help if you need it.
That's a solid toolkit. So we've talked understanding, influencing, changing emotions. Now using them for growth.
This is where it gets really transformative, the core idea. Emotions send messages about our biased interpretations of reality.
So the problem isn't reality itself, but our interpretation.
Often, yes. The book shares amazing stories here. Alice Summer finding joy in a concentration camp, Nick Vujicic overcoming immense physical challenges.
Powerful examples of inner resilience.
They show our capacity to find strength even in adversity. The book suggests challenging times are often when we grow the most.
And emotions guide that growth.
They can act as signals, telling us we need to change a thought, a belief, a behavior. Ignoring them just makes them louder, sometimes even leading to physical symptoms, like chronic stress.
Makes sense. What frameworks help understand these signals?
The book mentions above below the line, thinking empowered versus victim mentality, and fear-based versus love-based actions.
Could you give an example of fear versus love-based?
Yeah. Sure. Wanting to be an actor. Fear-based reasons might be making money, being famous, proving your worth. Love-based might be loving to entertain, expressing creativity, connecting with audiences, different motivations, different feelings.
Okay, that clarifies it. How can we apply this?
The book suggests reflecting on a recent negative emotion. What happened? How did you react? What was your interpretation? How did you get back to neutral? What could you do differently next time?
Self-reflection.
And daily journaling about emotions helps too. Creates detachment, reveals patterns.
Good idea. The book tackles some specific difficult emotions too, right? Like not being good enough.
Oh yes, a huge one. So common. The author shares personal examples.
How does it manifest?
People focus on weaknesses, dismiss compliments. They might magnify failures, which reinforces the story. Even if it feels bad, it's familiar.
Paradoxical comfort.
Exactly. The book says it's basically a sign of low self-esteem, and almost everyone feels it sometimes.
So how to use that for growth?
Identify triggers, situations, thoughts, and counter it by tracking accomplishments. Actively focus on the positive.
Like the exercises mentioned earlier. The win log, self-esteem jar, positive journal.
Precisely. They directly combat that not good enough feeling by providing evidence to the contrary.
And accepting compliments. Why is that important?
It respects the giver, and it helps you internalize positivity. The exercise is simple. Just say thank you. Sincerely. Let it sink in. Resistance might mean low self-esteem.
It can be an indicator, yeah. The book also suggests the appreciation game with a partner. Any recommended reading for deeper dives on self-esteem?
Nathaniel Branden's 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, Living Consciously, Self-Acceptance, Self-Responsibility, Self-Assertiveness, Living Purposefully, Personal Integrity. And Marilyn Sorensen's work, linking low self-esteem to negative interpretations of the past.
Good resources. What about being defensive? Where did that come from?
Usually fear. Fear of being wrong, fear that criticism confirms negative self-beliefs.
So use defensiveness as a signal too.
Yeah. Examine the trigger. What belief is being protected? What's the underlying fear?
Okay, stress and worry. We touched on stress.
Right. Stress is internal, our interpretation. Worry is often about the past or future. Both are harmful long-term.
And the key is taking responsibility.
Yes. 2 ways to reduce stress. Avoid the situation if possible, or improve how you cope.
The exercise involves listing stressors and reframing.
Exactly. Question if the situation is inherently stressful. What belief makes it stressful for you? Like the traffic jam example, is traffic stressful? Or is it the belief, I must not be late?
And worries. Most are unnecessary.
Because you can't change the past, and the future is largely uncontrollable.
So list worries, then categorize.
Examples. Control. Your effort on a project? Some control. How a meeting goes, you control prep, not others' reactions. No control. The weather, someone else's mood.
And for the no control stuff.
Let go of the need to control it. Practice acceptance. But also take responsibility even for seemingly uncontrollable things like traffic. Maybe you can leave earlier, listen to an audiobook, change your route, reframe or change what you can.
Okay. What about caring what people think?
Big source of anxiety for many. The book says it often comes from inflated self-importance. Reality check. People are mostly thinking about themselves.
Yeah, huh? Probably true.
There's that saying, at 20 you worry what everyone thinks, at 40 you don't care, at 60 you realize no one was thinking about you anyway.
Love that.
People don't track your minor mistakes like you think they do, and you can't please everyone anyway. Trying leads to a dull life.
So the advice is,
What others think is none of your business. Focus on expressing your true self with good intentions. Being overly self-conscious comes from distorting perception, attachment to a self-image.
how to change that perception.
Exercises. Realize others probably don't care that much. How often do you obsess over others' minor flaws? Realize you don't care that much about other stuff either. Reflect on your day's interactions.
And let go of the self-image.
Write down your fields of judgment. What image are you trying so hard to protect? Expose it.
Okay. Resentment. That feels like a heavy one.
It is. Anger over unmet expectations or perceived wrongs, often linked to poor communication. Nelson Mandela had a powerful quote about it being like, drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Oof. How does it build?
Same formula. Interpretation, they wronged me, plus identification, I'm the victim, plus repetition, replaying it endlessly, like not being invited to a party and stewing on it.
And festering makes it worse.
Definitely. Resentment basically says, something was rightfully mine, and they took it. It persists as long as being right feels more important than being at peace.
How to release it.
Compassion helps. Understanding people act from their level of consciousness, their conditioning, like the author's experience with his mother, or Tolle's quote about the mind clinging to the known, even if painful. You can't change the past.
So what are the steps to deal with it?
4 steps. Change interpretation. Did I overdramatize? Assume. Confront. Honest talk. Write a letter. Forgive. For your own peace. Connect to the present. Sedona method. Forget. Stop the repetition. Let resentful thoughts go.
Change, confront, forgive, forget. Got it. What about jealousy?
The book reframes jealousy, too, as a signal.
Yeah.
It points to what you value and want.
How so?
Susan Cain felt jealous of writer-psychologists. It guided her career. The author felt jealous of bloggers. It guided his path.
So ask, who makes me jealous? What does it show about my desires?
Exactly. It can also signal a scarcity mindset, believing there isn't enough success or happiness to go around.
Like the author feeling jealous of bestsellers and shifting to cooperation.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar's quote, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. Cooperate, don't just compete. Reflect on past jealousies.
Can it signal self-esteem issues too? Especially in relationships.
Often, stemming from feeling not good enough.
Yeah.
Remember, you can't control others. Trying often backfires. Revisit the self-esteem section if this is a pattern.
And it comes from comparison here.
Like usually biased comparison. Comparing your weaknesses to someone else's strengths. Or comparing yourself to the combined strengths of many people, impossible standard.
What's the alternative?
Compare yourself today to yourself yesterday. Track your own progress.
There's an exercise for fairer comparison too.
List things you do better than the person you feel jealous of. Balances the perspective.
Okay. Depression, the non-clinical kind.
Often arises from feeling stuck, hopeless, triggered by life events, or just dwelling on past future.
Dr. Reynolds' idea, again, we can create it with posture and self-talk.
Yeah, suggesting it's often self-created through behavior and thought patterns.
No.
He also noted moods fluctuate even in depression. Use the slightly better moments for positive action.
The book suggests it signals a disconnect from reality, getting lost in thought.
Yes, unique to humans. Tolle's idea, again, letting go of the ego, the false suffering self, by connecting with the present.
What are some strategies for milder depression?
Activity, focusing on others, Adler Carnegie idea. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, nature, mindfulness meditation, challenging negative thoughts.
Okay. Fear. We talked about specific fears, but fear generally.
Normal emotion. Often about the unknown or potential negative outcomes. Common fears around change, failure, judgment, unknown, loss, disturbing others, even success.
And fear often signals growth opportunity.
Yes, fear exists in the mind. The call is to accept it and act anyway.
The exercise is to do one feared task. Step out of the comfort zone.
Exactly. Build courage through action.
Procrastination. Why do we do it?
Task is boring, unimportant, too hard, fear of poor performance, habitual laziness.
But fear is often the main driver. Hidden maybe.
Often, yes. leading to avoidance even with excuses. Occasional procrastination is normal. Frequent might signal self-esteem or discipline issues.
And the cost.
Believing the mind's excuses leads to unfulfilled potential, low self-esteem, guilt, unhappiness. Remember, thoughts are not orders. You can ignore them.
The book has a big process for overcoming it, right? 16 steps.
Yeah, it's comprehensive. 1. Understand hidden reasons, fear. 2. Remind yourself of the costs, write them down. 3. Uncover your story excuses, write an address. 4. Rewrite your story, affirmations. 5. Clarify your why. 6. Identify distractions, list them. 7. Stay with the urge, observe it. 8. Record everything you do for a week, insights. 9. Schedule tasks. 10. Break tasks down. 11. Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. 12. Create quick wins. 13. Just get started. 5 minutes, 5-second rule.
Yeah.
14. Build daily habits. 15. Reward yourself. 16. Forgive past procrastination.
That's thorough. Lack of motivation.
Often indicates lack of a compelling vision or why. Setbacks are normal, but vision helps you bounce back. Maybe you're not doing what aligns with you or not stretching yourself.
So regain motivation by
Designing a life aligned with your strengths, personality, preferences. Focus on strengths, maybe redesign job or change careers. Know your personality, introvert, extrovert.
general strategies for sustaining it.
Compelling vision, clear goals, create a system habits, build self-discipline, practice self-compassion, mentions wake-up call book for rituals.
And finally, feeling stuck.
Often too many open loops or procrastinating on one big thing.
The fix.
3 steps, list all tasks, identify one you've put off, complete it, or a smaller related one, to get unstuck. Mentions Master Your Motivation book too.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a huge amount as we wrap up this deep dive into Master Your Emotions.
Hopefully it's given you, our listener, a clearer picture of your inner world.
Yeah, and some practical tools to feel more in control, more aware.
Absolutely. Remember, your emotions really shape your quality of life. Learning to navigate them well is just crucial for well-being.
And yeah, negative emotions will still pop up. That's life.
Yeah.
But try to remember they're temporary. They don't define who you are.
You're the witness, the observer behind the feeling.
Exactly. Think of them as guides. Learn the message, then practice letting them go. Don't cling, don't identify. You're beyond the emotion.
Well said.
So here's that final thought to chew on. What is that feeling, that perspective of being the witness of your own emotions? What does that truly reveal about who you really are? Something to explore.